Wow, it's really bright up here. Assalamu alaikum. As our brother said, my name is Nasser Salman. I'm a registered nurse that specializes in dialysis. I grew up in this area, and this past December to January, I had the honor of going on a medical mission to help our brothers and sisters in Gaza. I was stationed in Deir al-Balah at Al-Aqsa Shuhada Hospital. It gets harder and harder every time I come up to speak about my experience in Gaza. Since I left in January, things have gotten progressively worse, which is something I would have never imagined because when I was there, the conditions were already unbearable. What can I tell you that we don't already see on our screens? But the truth is, it's a lot worse in real life off camera than it is on camera, as you can imagine. My first day there, I was rounding with my colleagues in the ER, and I was immediately hit with a roller coaster of emotions. I tried so hard not to cry, and I wanted to be strong for them, but I felt my eyes watering up because the first case we saw broke my heart. There was a man with 3 little girls, the oldest 11 years old. He had a brain bleed and needed surgery with special clamps or he was going to die. Those clamps were not available in Gaza, so we were almost sure he wasn't going to make it. He begged us to save his life. He said, please, I'm all my girls have in the world. Now let me paint you a picture. In this hospital, it's not the stable healthcare that we see in the US. It's literal chaos. There's no medical equipment. There's not enough medical staff. There's people coming in with limbs blown off. There's people screaming and crying. There's sirens going off. It's total madness. In the midst of all this, we're making decisions with his 11-year-old girl as he slips in and out of consciousness. We draw his blood work and we have her walk it over to the lab because you have to go across the street to the laboratory there. They don't have the luxury that we do here. She comes back with a piece of paper with the results on it, and we explain to her what the results were. She was grown way beyond her years. Her childhood was stolen from her. She has to be an adult now, and if you couldn't guess it, her father didn't make it. We tried to console her, but what do you say to somebody like that? What do you do for her? She's all alone now, her and her sisters. Another example, there was news coverage about a little boy in the emergency room who had his leg blown off. I saw the post on social media covering the story. What you don't see on camera is that little boy's father was also injured in the bombing, and he was being treated on the floor next to his bed. To make space for all the casualties that were coming in, we were taking the mattresses off the beds, and we were treating patients on the bare metal frame. So can you imagine being sick and hurt and then being treated on a bare metal frame, sometimes laying there for hours? There were family lineages wiped off of the registry. We were making rounds one day in the ER, and there was a case where a woman came in the ambulance after her house was bombed. The blood was dripping onto the floor from her bed, and the gauze that she was wrapped in with her injuries was soaked in blood. So we gave a chance for the medical team to clean up and get her stable while we rounded on other patients, and we were going to come back to see her. When we went back to see her, there was a man sitting in the chair by the edge of the bed with his eyes swollen and red from crying. We picked up their papers to read about her and her chart and what's going on, and to our surprise, it wasn't a woman. It was a 12-year-old boy. His body was so swollen from his injuries that he looked like an adult. The guy on the edge of the bed was crying and asked us, what's going on? He said he was numb from all the deaths in his family, so he was prepared for the bad news. He said, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, but that little boy was his wife's distant cousin, and he took him in to take care of him because he's the only person he had left. Everybody on both sides of their family was dead. If you couldn't guess, the little boy didn't make it. These are just some of the examples. I saw little kids barefoot, hungry, thirsty, scared, dirty, laying next to their parents' grave in the cemetery. Some of them became beggars, asking for food or money just so they can get by. They're living in apocalyptic conditions. The scenes were like that of a horror movie or a nightmare. The sounds of the drones flying over us 24/7 can drive you insane. This is what we heard at 3 o'clock in the morning, every night. It got worse at night, and it was done purposely to do that, so that way we were uneasy at night. And the more we heard the drones, the more bombings we heard. So the closer the drone, the more the bombings in your area. And I slept in a hospital corridor, surrounded by patients, and this is what we heard all night. Can you imagine being hurt or your family hurt, and you're hearing this all night and all day? My room was inside the hospital, and I'll never forget the screams and cries of pain from a young boy at night. He would cry all night from the pain in his leg, and there wasn't much we could do about it because there was a lack of pain medications. I saw the mass graves with my own eyes. Everything was destroyed. Hospital buildings, schools, homes, masjid, the roads, literally everything. They were living in tents and some on the cold dirt floor. And when I say tents, it's not what you think. It's literally anything that they can put together, blankets with wood, wherever they can find. When it rained, it was torture for them because everything got flooded and all their stuff got wet. As we approach the winter, it reminds me of the babies that were freezing to death. As a grown man, I was cold in those conditions. Can you imagine the babies? Some people even had the audacity to question how babies froze to death in Gaza. Gaza is not that big as it is, and it's right by the beach. So the breeze coming in from the water was freezing. Now factor in the fact that most of these people are living in makeshift tents with no insulation, no heat, thin blankets, they're underweight and malnourished, and they don't have proper clothing, and on top of that, they were probably sick. And that's how you get the formula for babies freezing to death. Through all of this darkness, I got to know great people. I have never in my life met anyone like the people of Gaza. Allah Azza wa Jal has planted something inside of them that He hasn't planted in the rest of us. They are not a people of pity. They have pride and dignity and only ask for opportunity to be free. Their will to survive was out of this world. We had weekly meetings at the hospital to see how we can improve things, like infection rates, for example. They asked me to sit in on these meetings, and they asked me what can we do to improve infection rates because we were losing so many people to infections. And in my head, I'm like, we're literally treating people on the floor and we have no gloves and the healthcare system's completely collapsed. Like, what can we really do? We're writing on paper and pen these patients' charts. And they wouldn't accept that for an answer. They said there's always something we can do to improve. And that's exactly what they did. They kept building and moving forward. Nothing was going to stop them. There were shuyukh who walked around the hospital units just to give people moral support and make dua for everybody. We prayed wherever we could, most of the time in the hospital hallways because all the masajid were bombed. They would call the adhan by mouth at the top of the building because we had no microphones. They would say alhamdulillah for everything, no matter who or what they lost. The young men and women were still getting engaged and trying to get married. We had a security guard who got engaged while I was out there, and I was joking with him and asking him when's the wedding so I can attend. And we were sitting around and we were joking with him, and he said that he wanted to get married after the war. He was just going to get married. He just wanted to get engaged now. And they started poking fun at him, and they were like, you better take advantage of the situation and go get her out of her dad's tent before everything comes back and you got to buy flowers and you got to get a limousine and you got to get everything else. Just take advantage now and go get married. I also learned that the hospital workers were not getting paid. They weren't getting paid because the hospital belongs to the government and the government is run by Hamas. So nobody dared to even pay the workers or take the money for fear of being targeted by the occupation forces. So I asked one of the nurses, why are you still working without pay? We were standing face to face, and there were patients behind us. And he turned around and he pointed at the patients, and he said, "Shu dhamhim hadol." What is their fault? هذه أمانة وربي راح يسألني عنهم. He said, this is an entrustment and I'm not ashamed to cry in front of you guys. There are narrations of the Prophet ﷺ where he cried in front of the Sahaba because regarding his mother. All of our mothers should be cherished. When we hear the mothers in Gaza yelling out, Ya Amwat Muhammad, where are you? Do we not feel shame? We have the luxury of turning off our screens and going to sleep when we see that. But we all need to be a one. We need to be one ummah. We need to be one humanity. So when he said what is their fault? This is an amana and they're entrusted with me. God's going to ask me about this on the day of judgment. How many of us would be willing to do that during a time of war and show up to work and not get paid because your iman is so strong that you're worried about the day of judgment, even during a genocide? The kids did whatever they could to make life out of war. I saw them play with flat, worn-out soccer balls. I even saw a little girl play soccer with her shoes. She had one shoe on, and she was playing with the other shoe. She was playing half barefoot with her friends. They were kicking it around. I tried my best to keep a smile on their faces every day I was there because they didn't deserve what they were going through. We grew attached to each other like family. They would look for me to play with them every day, and even some days they would show up on my unit and I would have to kick them out. Like, you guys are going to get me in trouble. I'll play with you guys later. Get out of here. The night before I left, they asked me when I was leaving in the morning, and I told them 6 o'clock in the morning. And they made it their duty to come out in the morning, even though I told them not to. And it was raining that morning, and they all showed up. I actually woke up to the sound of them calling my name from outside from the window. I have a video that makes me cry every time I watch it of the kids when I left the day of Gaza. My colleague was recording a video of me with the kids gathered around the car. And as I was getting ready to leave, he asked them if there's anything that they wanted to say to me before I left. And one of the girls said, "Rah nishtak lo thkir wa Allah yasahhil tariqo." That means we're going to miss him a lot, and may God ease his journey. Here's this little girl who's stuck in a genocide, and she's making dua for me with a genuine smile on her face so I can make it home to my family on the safe end. To add some context to that story, one day we were outside of the hospital courtyard, and she pulls me to the side, and she tells me that she's sick and she needs help. So I ask her what's wrong so I can help her, and she's like, "I'm embarrassed. Can you please just talk to my mom?" So I did. I go talk to her mom, and it turns out that she needed surgery and needed to be evacuated out for the surgery. We did everything we could to get her evacuated, but she was denied. So the fact that that little girl made that dua for me and watched me leave with a genuine smile on her face when she's the one who really needs to leave really broke my heart. They're doing the hard part, and they gave up everything. They're fighting with their lives. We need to step up our efforts here to help them. Their message to us from the inside was we need to do more, and our voices need to be loud and clear with our representatives. We have one of the largest Muslim, Arab, Palestinian communities in the country here in New Jersey. Shame on us for our laziness and not electing officials that represent us. For every one of us that doesn't go out and vote, someone else is going out there and their voice is being heard. We need community outreach. Buy your friends and coworkers some shnafa or knafa, I'll let you guys fight over how to pronounce it, and introduce them to our culture. Posting on social media to your same group of friends is not going to cut it. Everyone should be out voting and doing all they can. We have about 4,000 registered Muslim voters in Clifton, and only 1,100 came out to vote in the primary election. That is shameful. I tried to do my part and get people to come out and vote, and some people even ignored the messages, which is okay. I'm not going to let that discourage me from their laziness. I'm going to keep going and encourage our people to go out. I've said this before in my other speeches, but I feel like it's so important to mention again because not only is it community outreach, some people are either uneducated or undereducated about the subject, and it's our job to educate them. So after learning about my mission to Gaza, one of my coworkers became more intrigued with what's happening, especially now that it involves somebody she knows, watching more videos of all the bombing that's going on. She came across a video that showed a bunch of innocent dead people laying in the street and asked me, she asked me, do you think I will be asked about this on the Day of Judgment? And I replied, this is exactly why there is a Day of Judgment. She then said to me, you're lucky that your soul will have an answer on that day. And I ask all of you, will your soul have an answer on that day? Assalamu alaikum.